Hey guys, I am Vikram Kakar and today we will learn about Azure storage redundancy types. So first of all, what is Azure storage redundancy? So Azure storage stores multiple copies of your data. This is done to protect your data from any event that could affect the data center, like a network failure or hardware failure or power outage or any natural disaster. So let's have a look at the storage redundancy types option in Azure portal. So I'm in the Azure portal. I have created a resource group already. I will now go ahead and create a storage account. So I select the resource group. I give it a standard name. So when you are creating a storage account, you are given the option to select the redundancy type. So they have offered different options, LRS, GRS, ZRS, GZRS. We will discuss these in detail in a minute. But this is where you are asked to choose the redundancy type. And it says over here, make read access to data available in the event of regional unavailability. So I will select LRS for the time being. And my primary region is East US. So I will go and review and create. And I'll create. Now, moving on, when we subscribe to Azure services, Azure commits to certain SLAs. These commitments are about the availability of your data. So this is one of the reasons as well why Azure is bound to offer different storage redundancy types to meet its target, which it has committed to in the Azure SLAs. Now, let's see different redundancy types. So we have local redundant storage, LRS, zone redundant storage, ZRS, geo redundant storage, GRS, geo zone redundant storage, GZRS. And then if you want read and write access to your data in the GRS and GZRS, even in the secondary region, then you can choose read access GRS or RAGZRS option. Now let's discuss each of these separately. So the first one is LRS, which is local redundant storage. So the diagram here shows LRS. So here Azure storage copies your data 3 times in a single physical location in the primary region. That is LRS. Now let's have a look at the benefits and disadvantages. So the benefit of LRS is that it is the cheapest option among all the redundancy types, and it gives you protection against any server rack or drive failures. However, the disadvantage is that if there is any event like fire or flooding which affects the full data center, then all replications of your data will be lost. Hence, it is advisable to only select this option if your data can be easily reconstructed. If your application or your data can be very easily reconstructed, then you can go and select LRS. However, if you need more availability for your data or a higher availability, then you are better off selecting the other options. So let's move on to the next model, which is ZRS, Zone Redundant Storage. In ZRS, Azure Storage copies your data across 3 availability zones in the primary region. Each availability zone is a separate physical location with its own power, cooling, and networking facilities. The benefits to ZRS are, so as we discussed previously, if there is any event which affects the full data center, then if you have selected ZRS, your data will be still available because your data is copied across 3 different availability zones. And secondly, ZRS offers a very high availability standard, and especially more compared to the LRS model. However, the disadvantage is that if there is any disaster which affects the whole of the primary region, then your data and all its replications will be lost. Let's now have a look at GRS, which is Geo Redundant Storage, and RAGRS, which is Read Access GRS. In GRS, Azure Storage copies your data twice. First, it copies your data 3 times in the primary region in a single physical location, and then it copies your data 3 times in a secondary region in a single physical location. If you want read and write access to your data in the secondary region, you need to select the option of RAGRS. Now let's have a look at GZRS, which is Geo Zone Redundant Storage, and GZRS. In GZRS, Azure Storage copies your data twice, first in the primary region and then in the secondary region. In the primary region, it copies your data 3 times across 3 different availability zones. And then in the secondary region, it copies your data 3 times in a single physical location in the secondary region. Again, if you want a read and write access to your data in the secondary region, then you can select the RAGZRS option. Now let's have a look at a little bit more detail to the GRS and GZRS options. So if your data and applications require very high durability, you can choose to copy your data in secondary region, which is hundreds of miles away from the primary region. The idea being that if there is any natural disaster due to which the primary region is not recoverable at all, then your data can still be accessed. The benefits of these options are, as I mentioned, that if the primary region is not recoverable, your data will be still accessed as it is stored in a secondary region. It offers excellent performance and a very high availability and durability of your applications. Also, you need to know, when you choose the GRS or the GZRS option, your data in the secondary region will only be accessible when the primary region is not recoverable. However, if you do want continuous access to your data in the secondary region, you can go for RA option, which will give you read and write access to your data in the secondary region, irrespective of its availability in the primary region. A couple of important points worth noting are when you go for the GRS or GZRS option, you can only choose the primary region. The secondary region is assigned by Azure considering what primary region you have chosen. So you cannot select the secondary region. Secondly, in the secondary region, your data is always stored in the LRS model. So if we go to the previous 2 types, so as you can see in GRS, in the secondary region, your data is stored using the LRS model, as well as in the GZRS option as well. In the secondary region, your data is stored using the LRS model. So these are a couple of important considerations you need to make when choosing the right option for your applications. Now let's have a look at these options in the Azure portal. So the storage account which I had created has been deployed. And remember, I had chosen my primary region as East US. I now go to a geo replication. Here I can see my primary region and it shows me which storage redundancy type I choose, which is LRS. Now if I change my mind and I want to amend the redundancy type, I can do that. I can go to configuration, and I had selected the LRS type previously. Now I want to select the GRS redundancy type. So I've done that. I will save this. This has been updated. Now if I go to the geo replication, now it has been updated and my storage redundancy type is Geo Redundant Storage, GRS. And it shows that my primary region is East US and Azure has assigned West US as the secondary region. So today we have learned about Azure Storage Redundancy type. I hope this video is useful for you guys. Thank you very much.